Today we're looking at the Logitech MX Ink pen. Meta was kind enough to send this to me for review, and I'm happy to jump into it. A few things about this pen. Before we get into it, you should really get your head around what this is. You should think of it as the same thing as a MetaQuest 3 3S controller. It really does the same thing, and in a lot of cases, it's not entirely impossible to use this in something like Beat Saber, for instance. I mean, using it as a wand and whipping it around. You do have 3 buttons right here. You got the 1, 2, 3, and then on the back, we have a button right here as well, which is used for syncing to the headset. And different applications are going to make use of these buttons in different ways, but mostly what you need to know is that in most games, they're going to see this controller. It's going to be a bit janky all by itself, and they're going to allow you to position it. If you're holding it like this, well, the controller may be up here. And so in that case, they would tell you how to position the controller, hold a button, and then move it in space to accommodate the position of your hand and the controller so that it matches. Similar to like what you might have with a golf club in Walkabout Mini Golf. Now this controller has got a USB-C. You can plug that up for charging, but they also include a dock. So you drop it in, and it charges. All in all, it's a very tidy bit of tech. But the question most people are gonna have is, what is this good for? You certainly wouldn't want to use it as a controller in something like anything that required a trigger. It's not gonna work that way. You could force it to kind of work in a very janky kind of way, but it's not designed for that. What this is really designed for is pen uses. So something like Gravity Sketch, Vermilion, HoloLight, and OpenBrush. And for the purposes of this video, I've been using Vermilion, which is a blast. I mean, this video is not really about Vermilion, but it's what you're gonna see. And if anything, I've spent more time in TiltBrush and now OpenBrush since it went open source. But I gotta say, I had a blast in this. This was fun. I imagine if you actually had an easel and you put a board up against it and you made contact with the board, it would only be that much more immersive. It really is unlike any other controller solution that I've come across. But in this use case I'm talking about, it was a digital representation of a board, and then I'm holding a paintbrush and I'm kind of drawing in the air. But it didn't really affect me too much because the board prevents you from going through it. So if you stick your hand through the board, your digital representation of your hand just kind of hovers there, and there's a feedback, it vibrates. And so even though I'm not like pressing the tip against the surface, it does feel as if I'm really drawing on something, you know, solid. It doesn't feel like I'm missing out on a lot. But if you do have a board, or if you're writing on a paper, something on your desk, this tip right here, it's got a pressure sensitive tip, and they send a couple replacement tips as well. I don't know if these are gonna go bad over time or how that works, but there are replacement tips. And it senses the pressure you're using when using this pen. And I found that in writing sessions, just testing it with that, it really did convey, it represents a pencil or a pen in that sense. So in this particular app, Vermilion, when you're holding a paintbrush, you could pick from a bunch of different brushes, but you may be holding it here and you want your hand to be here. And so you simply hold a button and then pull your hand back. And what it does is the brush hovers in the air, and then your hand does this. When you jump into the game for the first time, you're going to find that, as you see in this footage here, the controller's like this, like it's awkward and kind of janky. And that was my experience with TiltBrush as well. Out of the box, it has a bit of jank to it, but just like every golf accessory, just like every gun stock, I mean, most of these games are going to give you the option to kind of position it appropriately, and that's where this thing shines. I have spent hours and hours and hours inside of OpenBrush. I'll show some footage here. I was doing an alien build, which isn't done. I might make a whole video of it, I don't know. But that was with a controller, and I was happy with it. I'm still happy with it. Drawing with a controller is fine. It's great, but I did get a level of polish with this that can't be had with the controller. Something else that needs to be said about this is that while the Quest 3 and Quest 3S come with two controllers, if you try to pair this with it, it's going to replace one of the controllers. You will never have two controllers and a pen. You'll have one controller and a pen, which isn't a big deal, but it's something that needs to be said. Charging is easy. I like how minimalist it is. And I was talking to a fellow creator a few weeks ago asking, hey, what are you guys using this for? And people said Gravity Sketch and OpenBrush and Vermilion, all the stuff I'm doing. But then one guy chimed in and said, I'm working on incorporating it into a gun stock to create a more lightweight, minimalist experience. And that struck me. That is not the use case that these guys intended, for sure. It's not the use case that comes to mind when I think about something like this. I'm interested in drawing, building, creating, and so this is great. But there's going to be a number of people out there who want to take this and modify it. And this is so lightweight that you could see somebody using it for Beat Saber, that minute wand feature. And when you take into account the prospect of attaching it to a gun stock and having a gun that you hold that doesn't have a bulky controller attached to it, as most gun stocks do, just an actual gun, just a Glock that you hold, and it's light as heck, and this sits on top of it. That is a cool prospect, and I'm excited for that. I think we're going to see some of that with this. But it's got its problems. I mean, this does not have outside tracking like the Quest itself or the Quest Pro controllers. There are lights around this, just like the Quest 3 controller, and they need to be visible to the cameras to track properly. And so there are times where I'm holding this, and if I hold it like this, well, now it's gone, and they can't see it, and it's going to wig out and show up over here. And so I could see something like a gun stock being an issue in that sense. But as far as the base use case and drawing in something like this, I threw my daughter in this. She's kind of a regular on this channel at this point, and she had a blast in it. She loved it. I'll show some of that footage here of what she was building. All in all, I feel like if there is a downside to this pen, it's that there isn't a lot of native support yet. Logitech has a list of compatible applications. It includes Arkio, Engage, Gravity Sketch, Gesture VR, Painting VR, Oso VR, Vermilion, Thrasher, Figment XR, Fundamental VR, HoloLight, OpenBrush, Elusis, Shapes VR, Visionware, and Needle. It says plus many more. It kind of works out of the box just because the Quest recognizes it as a controller. But in terms of the fine, granular detail and making use of it just out of the box, I'm excited to see what developers do with this down the line. Right now, at a price point of $130, that's a lot if you are not some kind of a professional or enthusiast painter, creator, if you're not constantly in Paintbrush or Gravity Sketch. But if that is you and you're in that constantly, this is a good buy. If you guys have used this, I'd love to hear from you. What is your use case? What do you like about it? What do you wish could be improved? What are you looking forward to? Thank you for being here. You guys have been watching Bringhurst VR, and I'll catch you on the flip side.